presentation on presentations. The first thing I'll do is an overview of what we're going to do throughout the evening. Hopefully in this order, but you never know, as they say. So I don't mind questions from the floor. If somebody knows more than me, please tell me. I'm searching everything, but you never quite can. Right, so definition and history I thought I'd look at. So I'm going to make a definition of presentation software and some history. No, should it have done that? Oh, there we are. It's going to be like that, I can see already tonight. I shouldn't have worked that way. Demonstration of some presentations. It's going to do that again. Oh, yeah. What makes good presentation software? And I have no idea what this might be. And different uses of presentation software. So that's page 1. So what is the definition of presentation software? I have to think carefully about this one. I've come up with presentation software can create screens with a common theme or background and apply styles to paragraphs and words such as heading, bulleted list, non-bulleted list, without distracting window furniture. No. Window furniture now. Well, there isn't any on this screen, so you've not got an icon bar, you've not got backdrop things. What you've chosen is your backdrop is the backdrop. There's no scroll bars, there's nothing like that. So basically, if you wanted to show a picture as a backdrop, that's what you show, then you put the words on the top. So the styles, I don't know how many people have played around with PowerPoint. I've been playing with it since whenever PowerPoint version 1 came out, in the mists of time on Windows 3, I think. So normally what they have is like a title like we do at the top here, definition thing. Then we have a body of thing which could have bullet points or just lists, and then we could have pictures and stuff like that. And basically, anything that does that is presentation software as far as I'm concerned, because what you're doing is getting rid of the desktop as such, so you can put your message across whatever it is. So if it's down in the bottom right hand corner, John sits here. So thought I'd start off with this one because we're trying to educate ourselves, so thought link well on a desk with a hinge there. Right, so is there anything next? Yes, there is. Hey. So I was trying to work out the history of presentation software, and this is really tricky because obviously original computers didn't do graphics as such. Well, they did do sticky things. So I think the first time that presentation software was used, sort of, in the good old days, what they used to do was do some computer graphics on a CRT in a darkened room with a 35mm camera in front of it and take a picture of the screen and then make a slide. So we're saying we're using electronic slides. They actually made a real slide from a picture on the screen of a computer. So, did you know that? Worrying. I know we've still got some of those 35mm slides in the back. So, and of course, I don't know if you can remember back in the good old days of RISCOS 3.1, I had an Archimedes, and one of the cover discs said, just show a picture without all that other stuff. And it just showed one. Couldn't do two. Just tried to reload it and show another one, you know. So I think will be the original presentation software as such. So it's just like a picture screen. Well, you know, like the photo frames that you have nowadays, the digital ones. That's the very original version of that, isn't it? So I think after that, interesting the terminology as well. If you had the RISC PC, it had, I think, was it 50 or 100 slides that just went round and round on a carousel. And I think the carousel refers again back to 35mm slides where you had a circular tray, which was like a carousel on your fairground. And it just sort of went round and chose different ones. And well, I think up to about 10 years ago, if you went to some exhibitions, that's what we had. Just a whole set of slides in a slide projector with a timer on. I mean, ching, next. So again, still just pictures. And then I think went for the big stuff. Yeah, text adder for captioning and titling. I know we've got some slides at work, which is say, I think we're done with this CRT and the 35mm camera thing. And there were graphs for like the business courses. So rather than trying to draw a graph yourself, you actually got the computer to draw straight lines and put the captioning on for the different bars of it. And then, of course, you can show that to a big audience, because in the good old days, there were no video projectors. You had to use a slide projector because that's all there was, apart from an OHP. And I do remember I used to work at police training, and we had our techie people would actually draw graphs by hand, then put them into an acetate frame on it, and then do your OHP. And that's less than 30 years ago. Yeah. So things have moved on a bit. Right, the last thing that I think it was is later used mainly for words with some pictures, which will be the advent of PowerPoint and all the other different things that came out for the PC. And if you ever sat through these millions of things, which of course you're doing already, PowerPoint presentations, usually lots of words and not too many pictures. So it's changed sort of on its head from originally just showing pictures to now having some pictures but mainly words. And of course it depends what sort of presentation you're going to, but presentation for a lot of people is a PowerPoint show of some description. Right, let's have a look at the notes. Right, so let's jump out of this one. Like that, and I'll go with that. Now, if you've been to any of our shows recently, you should have seen this one. And what we're looking at this one is effectively a self-running show, going around in a circle, and it's just advertising the club. What we've got is different effects, not too many words, but huge ones, so anyone can see it from across the room, even on a small monitor. And it changes up quite often, so that it'll catch your attention by having a dissolve or a fade or whatever going across it. So effectively, this is a sales thing, and you may recognise yourself in the audience here today. Oh, we sat in the same places, can't we? I'll have to shuffle it up a bit, somebody. So this is one I did, and originally this started off as in an OHP, the programme, as opposed to OHP, the acetates on a piece of cardboard, because that would be really tricky. And then I think I've made this into a fade presentation. So I think that's why the acorn's got a bit crunchy edged, but the fonts are fine. So I'd say this is something if we weren't selling rock, you could put this in your shop front and you'd be selling something because it's changing all the time. It's going to attract your eye. So what was that I just saw? I'll have to wait till it comes around again. So if it's not too long, you will wait till it comes around again. Something I don't know if you've seen in some estate agents now, they have something like this, just shows like houses at different prices, so you can have a look. If it's things that have just come in today, we haven't got into the window, they'll put it on something like this. And also seen some places, jewellery, watches, sale items, stuff like that, particularly jewellery, because normally there's no jewellery left in the shop. But if you've got the screen in front of the shutters, then it's unlikely going to mash the screen, isn't it? You're not actually going to get any jewellery, are you? So things like that. So this is, we say, one I've sort of tweaked over the years. And the thing is, you'll never get them right, you just get them less wrong and hopefully more professional looking. Because the nice thing with Riscos is we have anti-alias fonts and you can set a high resolution font. Although Windows has got closer in the last few years with anti-alias fonts. Although I'll see if I've got a PowerPoint with a W in. I always have a look at W's in PowerPoint and I usually look rubbish. So I'm still not doing something right in Windows. Right, so that's that one. Okay. So, on to a different thing. I've just been running these on the RISC PC at the moment, but just for fun, I'm going to run some PowerPoints on an iPad. Because I thought I'm going to be bringing about 5 machines here if I'm not careful. So I thought let's try and narrow it down a bit. So we've got some bits and bobs. This should pop out at the end. You said no. It did earlier. Yay! Now it's interesting, it's a different size on screen. There we go. And you have to think it says 1920 by 1080, so not quite well done now. But there we go. So this is, and of course, it's interesting. I made this on a square screen, well, 43 screen, and I'm looking at it on the wide screen, so that'll be part of the reason it's not as big as well. Whereas I think Yeah, on the RISC PC, it doesn't understand widescreen, so it just fills it out anyway, in a strange way. Whereas this knows it's 4 to 3, so it projects 4 to 3. The joys of widescreen. Right, so this is... I'll just press that. So this is something I just made up from work, so hence it's got the University of Leeds logo in the corner. What I do with a lot of mine, I don't know if you can see it behind as well as you can here, rather than having a block colour as a background, I find a graded display from black to a dark colour usually looks more interesting without being distracting. And what I've tried to do is, yeah, I can see the difference here. Tried to get them, it's actually a black border around the University of Leeds, but you can't see it on the projector, which is an interesting thing. If you know you're going to be using a projector, don't trust what you're seeing on the monitor. Try it with a projector, because some things will not look anything like you thought they would, because they tend to not do highlights very well, or as I call them, low lights either, the black end of the spectrum. They tend to be good in the middle and drop off at the ends. So I've got something coming up, I'll see how this works with the projection. May see nothing. We'll find out. So, let's have a look and see what... Now this is interesting, because I designed this on a PC. On a PC, that appeared just goes ping as one thing. And this, word by word, you can see that's still going slow. So obviously, whatever the conversion to run it on this iPad, which is admittedly a version 2 rather than a 3, 4, or is it? Are they up to 5 now? I can't remember. They've got faster processors basically. Flight on the left was fine. And this one I don't think bound. Oh, that comes up, yeah. There's another one.
What presentation program are you using on the iPad?
On the iPad, yeah, that's a good one. I'll have to have a look in a second. It used to be Kingsoft, which I know you can get for Android as well.
Yeah.
So let's just have a look. And it's just changed its name recently, so let's have a look. It's not. It's not Keynote. I'll have to jump out of it and have a look. But I'll just show you these things first. Yeah, you can do like a wheel result, sort of showing you how the thing comes in. And the other thing I've done here, if you notice, when we've seen the bullet points, it's gone to a different colour. So you can still see it, but it's not highlighted. I call it low lighting. It's my favourite pen if I could buy one. So what it does, it lets you see what was before. It tends to draw your eye to the current thing as well, which I think is more professional. So you still have the history of what you've done without it disappearing, but it's not sort of like as in your face as the others. So, and you can do obviously I think as well. Say exactly what that. Dim back, I think, is the phrase for it in PowerPoint. And it's a starting colour, which we've got here. So that's the white, and the click pass colour, which we've made green because it goes in the background, but we chose a different green so it still stands out like that. And you can choose that normally globally. And that could be that for that one. Order appearance. Here we go. These are all the things that PowerPoint has that, you know, if you're looking to use some software, PowerPoint pretty much has everything going. And not all the other ones do. So this is, again, sort of cool from work. So we had some text come in first, and then the next time I tapped, we got 2 pictures coming in. This time I've got some text, and I've just got 1 picture, and another picture. So what you can do, you can link items together. So if you wanted, you could have that all appear at once, or just have the text, first bit of text, the second bit of text, and then any 1 picture, or any 2, or any 3, or whatever makes sense. I've used PowerPoint as a basis for something that's actually on Leeds University website, and there's some effectively conversion software that changes your PowerPoint into, no, which one is it, a flash animation thing. So what you have to do, you're doing a voiceover and you have to press the button at the right time for the right things to come in. So it's quite useful to have 2 or 3 things coming at once that you're talking about, rather than just one, then the other, then the other, then the other, or the whole lot at once, which again, you don't know which bit to look at because it's all there at once. So that's a useful thing in PowerPoint. And I think this is what you can do. You can have, we're not connected to the internet at the moment, but let's see if we can press the one button here. You can get hyperlinks, and you can also link through to other slides as well. So you can have a slide presentation that leads to another slide presentation if the audience wanted that sort of thing as well. So, yeah, so we've got a couple of hyperlinks there. The bottom of, for whatever reason, isn't hyperlinked. So, right. Yeah. So we'll now find out what the software was. And it is. Let's go back to it. And what tell us? This will be somewhere down here. Manual, open port files, features introduction, WPS Office is the answer. So that used to be Kingsoft. It is free, and what it seems to do, it seems to play back on the PowerPoints fine. You can create PowerPoints on the iPad, but what it doesn't do, like we're showing the bulleted list coming in bit by bit, I can't get it to do that. Mind you, I've only got this like 2 days ago, so I've not read the manual fully, but I think that's usually the limitation of free software. You can't make a full PowerPoint with it, but you can always show a full PowerPoint with it. So that's WPS Office. So, what's next? So we'll be jumping between the PC and the iPad. Yeah, so PowerPoint is generally sort of taken as the thing that you would use for presentations. I think there used to be quite a few different ones once upon a time. There were sort of like Office bundles on the PC, but they all seem to have disappeared by the wayside.
There used to be one in Lotus 123.
That's the sort of thing I was thinking. Freelance Graphics, now you mentioned that one. Now, whether they're still available or not, I don't know.
I don't know.
No. But the thing is, of course, what you need to do is always have the player software. And what most people do, they'll design something up there, and then they'll give some player software for you to play around with. But what they've also done, I've done some presentations at home, and I've used OpenOffice, and I think it's called Impress, the program they use there to make a PowerPoint, and it's nearly right. I mean, they keep changing PowerPoints, so obviously going to be a little bit behind on all of them. But I've noticed some things, like it might invert. I've got like a black at the top to a green at the bottom of the screen. It does it the other way up, you know. So just little things. If you've done it on one and you're going to play it on another one, you need to check that it does what you think it does. Unless, of course, you know you have the program yourself, and that's sort of the advantage of having a laptop or a tablet like I've got here. But if you've seen it on your tablet and you take a tablet with you, you know that's how it's going to come out. So then, if you've created it somewhere else, but you know you want to show it on that, you can check it back, so you know your presentation will present what you want to present. So, yeah, there are some other ones for the iPad as well. There's Keynote for the iPad, so we're going to find that one. And maybe in the cheapskate, I think all these are free or less than £3 on the iPad.
Well, if you get the latest iPad now, the 3 packages are free now.
Oh, are they? Right, yeah.
But it's only if you buy an iPad in the last year or so.
Yeah, well, this is a version 2. Yeah.
And also you can obviously now get Microsoft Suite, but you've got to pay the subscription to Microsoft to get it.
Yeah, surprise.
Well, you can actually get it free as a viewer, but if you actually want to physically use it for developing, you've got to pay a month.
Yeah, because I downloaded PowerPoint for the iPad, but I couldn't really get it to view anything, and it just kept getting it to like sort of pay money. Pay money to Microsoft.
That's usually, yeah. Well, I don't know how many people here are iPad users. The joy of trying to get something onto the iPad, it's a pain in the bum. It's dead easy to gate off if you've made it there. If you're trying to gate on. And I've brought a device with me just to show you for anyone that's interested. I've got this thing, and what does it do? It creates a Wi-Fi hotspot, but it's got a USB socket on it and an SD card slot, so you can take anything from USB or SD, put it into this program, export it into other programs within the iPad, which I find really, really useful. I mean, I've tried using the iTunes software and sort of go, what is this? It doesn't seem to do anything as far as files are concerned, other than backing up what you already have on it. I put stuff on the iPad. For me, it seems to be a bit of a pain. I don't know if it's just me or am I missing something from that vast instruction manual. I think it was a sheet paper that big. It said iPad, press Coke, you know, that was about it. So, Yeah, so I mean, if you've got a PC at home, I'd say just use the free software that comes with the Open Office thing, and that will generally be absolutely spot on for what you're doing. And that translates to iPad as well, because it saves out in a PowerPoint format. So I think that I can't remember what's changed between the most recent ones. I know obviously PowerPoint is what's an Excel something or other. It's got an X on it. It's PowerPoint X rather than PPT, isn't it? So I think that means does that mean it's a crunched format or something?
XML format.
It's XML. That's it. Oh, my microphone appears to have just died. More batteries, sir. Right, sound the same. Of course, we can use ones that are wire on, there's not really walking around. We tend not to, for whatever reason. That's technology for it, just get used to walking 1 inch with a wireless microphone. Right, so where we got to? Yeah, so this is iPad software, Keynote. So, just shows you. So it's just got nearly always anything like all the graphics look nice. They'll spend hours designing. And this is part of the thing I say with presentation software as well. I mean, I look back at I've done presentations for like lecturers for about the past 4 years, and look back at one 4 years ago. It's all right, but it's not as good as the one I'm doing now, you know. So unless you're a graphic designer, you know, you have to sort of have a look at what other people are doing and go, oh, that's good. See if we can nick that idea. Yeah, okay. So just run through some of the special effects shortly. And this is interesting. I didn't realise the iPad can do this. I've got a clock showing me the time on my iPad display, but you're not seeing it up there. I didn't realise that you can actually get a different display on the iPad to what comes out the connector. Yeah, useful stuff there. So one of the things you can do with this, you can get presenter notes on PowerPoint. So basically, you're seeing whatever on the screen, something like that. But I've got, you know, like say something like a chemical formula, trying to remember which one it is. It's dichloromethane. You can just have that as part of your notes, or you know, prompts for yourself to get on to the other stuff. So this is actually telling me at the moment. I've got slide 9 of 24, and it's 20:31 and 8 seconds. Which, if you're presenting, you might want to know. Like, so you're supposed to be finishing for lunch at such and such time. I mean, look at that for a graph. You'd have to say that's good, isn't it? 3-dimensional, very clean, using wood to tell me about wood. We'll get some animations now. These are very sneaky. I think they've got something like some of these in PowerPoint, because I think they've seen this one and went, bugger. So they put some of these in the new one. That's a fairly whizzy transition, isn't it, that one? And this is one of my favourites. But if you want to go to this, that's it. Apart from that, how's about this? Yeah, that's a bit clever, isn't it? So if you're trying to impress some clients, I think you've probably done it by now. Doesn't matter what the words say. Oh, yeah. All right. Oh, it is. And these are fun ones, where things can appear. And again, they're just animations, but at the right points, you know, they'll make the point better. Oh, it says I can pinch to finish, and now you can see like the slide sorter on the side, which I wasn't seeing earlier, but on some versions.
Keynote, you can also do the laser as well, don't you?
Laser, this is true, yes. Well,
that's how it's fun.
I will do this because let's just start. Now, this is an interesting thing. We just get to a random point. Is it this one? Let's get to the right one. I'll have to set it up beforehand. But yes, once upon a time, people used to use laser pointers, and you can set it up that your finger highlights a rounded object, so it looks like a laser pointer, except of course you never lose the damn thing. I mean, batteries don't fall down, you don't kill people in the first few rows who suffer damaged retinas, which is what they always used to know about it. And of course the aeroplanes stay in the sky if you happen to point it the wrong way, that's where it's building. So, yeah, there's lots of things you can do for presenter aids, which wouldn't be something you use for rolling demo, and yet it's all presentation software. So, now, getting to Riscos, sort of. The first thing you saw with the school desk was some Riscos software, which we'll come to in a bit. But do we have anything like PowerPoint on Riscos? And actually, not really. The I'll explain that. We're showing how a slide built up using different bullet points and pictures and stuff like that. You can't do that on any of the software I've seen, other than the first one, which is now obsolete software. It just happens to be running under sort of like the fact I'm running Riscos 4 point something rather than 5 point something. So the nearest thing is OHP, but OHP, as far as I'm aware, Steve might be able to tell me differently, or some of you who's got this, the creation software still only runs on 4 or 6. And I don't think it runs on 5, but you can show anything you've made on it on versions of 5. Any ideas, Steve, about that one? No, I've tried finding the answer. I sent something off to CGA, but not got an answer back yet from them. But I think there was a problem in making it work with 5. Don't know why. There you go. So whether it works under Amula, try that. You've got Amula at home, try and find OHP, and well, it's OHP should. But even so, it's the real OHP. I don't think it works under 5, which is pain in the bum. But I'll show you that running under 4 stroke 6 under the RISC PC anyway, to show you the problem I have. So, let's have a look. PowerPoints. Just have to remember where all these are. Is it this one? So straight to this is my biggest, newest PowerPoint, which has, if you look down the bottom, loads of slides. 41. Well, no, we've got to 41, trust me on this one. But we'll show you some of the features that I mentioned earlier. And get back to them again somewhere. And I'll put myself in notes view as well, so I can help myself. And I have. Interesting, what I've worked out that's a sensible thing to do. In PowerPoint, you can go to any particular slide by just typing a number on the keyboard, because it still means you have to know where all these slides are. So you don't need a sheet of paper to tell you which one you're trying to get to. So I thought, how's it like to make slide 1 the slide that I never show? Which of course I'm now going to show you, just to show you how it works. What I've got, the website I know won't work because I've not got a web link in it, but there's a website that's relevant to the course that I do with this PowerPoint. And rather than trying to work out which slide it's on, you can just go type 1, go to the front, press that, and get to the website. But one of the other ones, I'll press bad good and see whether it does it for us. Yeah, it won't work now. Yeah, actually guessed. Now it's a facility that doesn't work on this information. You can try testing these things, can't you? Basically what that does on a real PowerPoint on a PC, it jumps to later on. So if I escape out of this one, I'll remember to, we're talking about ink and things, weren't we? Thank you. And here we are. So that will be inking around something, and that just does it temporarily, which is similar to the one you were saying on the iPad software. But if you want, you can write, if you're really good at writing. So if you wanted to make some note or circle something and come back to it later, you could do that. So this will then go into my normal PowerPoints. So you can see what I'm doing here. I've got a title, I'm bringing in bullet points like that. And what I've got, just go back to the start of that one. I started that slide with a heading and 2 pictures to give you a clue. So we're talking about central teaching space, which is where I work at Leeds University. And you can see we've got a small room and a big room. So you can guess, I'm probably going to say something small room, big room about it. Approximately 250 rooms, booked by timetable, and capacities from 12 to 550. Which is marginally worrying if you've ever stood in front of 550 people and it's all going horribly wrong and someone says, can you fix it please? Which is what my job is. Calm under pressure, you just have to swear with the microphones off and hit your head on the bottom. So I don't know if this is the very latest one. Yes, there we are. It's a bit like the Alfred Hitchcock moment. I'm in the bottom picture on the right. Alfred Hitchcock, I think, appeared in most of his films at some point, or didn't it? But it's interesting. I took a picture of somebody else and said, no, I don't want that on. If it's going on the internet, so I don't want that picture on there. I said, I tell you what, we can reshoot it and put me in on the back of somebody else that we won't know who it is. Well, we know who it is because it's our boss. But, anyone looking wouldn't know be able to pick out and go, oh, heck, that's so. So you can see, if we go backwards on this again, what we've done, we start off with, in this case, a heading and a picture. Then we've got the bullet points, and we've got a bullet point with a picture. Then we've got another bullet point, and then a separate picture. So you can see we've linked certain items together, some come separately. Now this is an absolute nightmare to do in RISCOS software, and I'll show you why. And we'll do something very simple. This is a completely different use of presentation software. And you'll get confused with this, because I know I did. Right. You can tell it's going to be fun already, can't you? Right, so here we are. I was learning Russian for my Sims a few years ago, first year Russian. So you can see that at the top that looks like Naknopt. If anyone's been to Russia, lots of the signs look like that. Well, it's one big emigration, and you see it as passport. And you click that, strangely, the real word is passport. So you can see this is about the simplest presentation you're ever going to get. Again, rather than using a block colour background, I've used a graded background, just stop it being totally boring. Use contrasting colours. A number of people do something like dark grey on black. You've probably read some magazines like that every so often. You try to read them. Need a really good contrast of colours. So normally white and yellow against a dark background. And it's interesting. The lazy thing that everybody does normally, making a PowerPoint, the background is white because that's what paper is. So boring. And it just looks so unprofessional. I'll show you something later on where you can play spot the difference. So here's a white background with something made looking crap, which is actually shown to a national set of police officers. I can tell you this because I said, you do realise we could have a better one, sir. We'll come to that one in a minute. And like, I think during the same afternoon they made them a better one. There you go. So anyway, that's passport. So let's try another one. That looks like Mapka. Any ideas what that might be in Russian? Not a sausage yet. But no, you say it as marka. So if you've done a foreign language, that might mean something to you. Stamp, absolutely correct.
Stamp.
So you can run this one. I did it at quite different speeds. Initially fantastically slow, so how the hell does that one sound? I then just sort of speeded up the timings on it. So I can just see it out the corner eye and then say the word and then know what it was before it got to the bottom one. But if you look at that, well, there's only 3 elements to each slide, aren't there? Now in PowerPoint, what you do is you make one slide, put those elements on and say, can we see them 1, 2 and 3? Not on RISCOS. I'll show you the joy of it all when I get back to it. They all have a different way of doing it. So you can see, you have to make 3 slides. You start with the one you want at the end, and then you pull out the elements you don't want to the next one, and then the next one. So if you can imagine if you had like 7 bullet points and 3 pictures, you might have a lot of slides to get one slide. So it's fantastically tedious. You can do it. Sorry?
Sorry, you told us the answers for the next one.
Yeah, if you're clever, yeah. But it just, I know we went to Russia recently on part of a cruise, and I said to my girlfriend, see if you can read anything at all in Russian. And she's going, it's a completely different language, isn't it? I said, you might be able to guess this one, because we were going through on a coach, and it says C-T-O-N, and that's stop. So C is S, T and O are the same. Remember, I think there's only 5 letters that are the same in Russian. It's A-T-K-O-N, or actually A-T-K-O-M. Everything else is something else. And of course, just for fun, I thought, I tell you what, let's put some of that Greek stuff in, because that looks really confusing. So this is why you have a Cyrillic alphabet, and I've had to make some of these up because I didn't have a Cyrillic font at the time. But you can see, for every one of those, every slide, because it has 3 elements in it, is actually 3 slides. So say you have to start at the end and work backwards. So you start, this is a bit long-winded. So we'll go somewhere else and try something else. And in fact, what we started off with, intro. Right, if I show you this, Right, it doesn't magnify for whatever reason. You can see I've got 3 slides there with lots of bullet points. So if you can remember what I've been saying, you can have a look at the start of that. So we had a title, a bullet point, another bullet point, another bullet point, another bullet point, all on one slide. And that's just so much easier. But so we haven't currently got anything risk-off software that does that. And this is, if you had looked at it carefully beforehand, sure. Don't know if you recognise this sort of top to anything. It's actually, I have to remember it now, Texties. It's Texties Presenter. And I bought this donkeys years ago when we were at Thorns Park. So that must be a while ago, wasn't it? Because, what's it? I think I'd seen Texties and had a word on the stand. I said, are you going to do anything for presentations? And I realised I was talking to Jeff Titmus, the man that wrote it. Right? So I said, oh, looking at that, I said, why do you do it? What do you do? I said, well, I make PowerPoint presentations as part of my job. I would like to not use PowerPoint presentations, I'd like to use some risk-off stuff. So, right, so this is days before email. I said, give us your address. So I sent him things I thought would be useful, and that's one of the most useful things. Can you make a multi-functioning slide with bullet points and pictures and all that really on the one slide? You know, and you've got all the other things here. If we click on that, you can see we've got that bit bigger now. So what it's also got, it's got bounding boxes for safe areas of where you can write. So if you've written too much, it'll go outside, so that means make the font smaller. Similarly, we've got safe areas around the text there. So, you know, it's giving you an idea of where you're limiting what you're writing. It's intriguing. I had somebody, you'll like this, the head of digital learning at Harvard. No names, I can't say who it is. Right? And he said, that's funny, that slide, some of the stuff disappeared off on the left-hand side. I said, yeah, because he went outside the bounding box. And he's the head of digital learning. I thought, doesn't know as much as me about PowerPoint. Then again, I've been doing it for lots of years. Whenever Windows 3 came out, anyone can remember when that was? Before 1995, I do know that. 1993?
Windows 3?
Windows 3.
86.
Was it 86? No. That's, well, whenever PowerPoint came out, it's version 1. So it's maybe towards 90. So I've been doing it beyond a few years. And obviously some people haven't AutoCAD. There you go. So yeah, this is part of the Texties suite of software. And interestingly, I found some details about this because I thought, well, I've not seen this. I don't know if you can remember, Texties was actually triple format. It was PC, Mac and RISC-OS, which is like pretty unique because most of them are like maybe RISC-OS and PC, or started off on Mac and then ended up being RISC-OS. The Texties suites were all triple format. And what's it now? Texties cost, yeah, I found it. Texties Presenter used to be about £40 for a single user. We now sell to schools a whole suite of programmes which have, was it Presenter, Turtle, Word Processor, Painting Programme, Database, Spreadsheet. But you do have to be a school because it's 700 quid for the year for a site licence. But it's PC only, you know, so it's disappeared in and it's sucked up into the PC world. So effectively what we have, the two that I've been showing you, OHP and Fade, which I think both, as I say, the playback definitely both work on RISC-OS 5, and Fade you can create them, but you can't create something as easily as with OHP, because you have to do these mind games of, I want it to change like this, and then you have to make a different sort of screen and like it on or off a different, do bulleted lists and things like that. So you have to sort of go the funny way around. Because I mean, the other thing you can do with PowerPoints, you can make a whole set of JPEGs, and you can do that in OHP. But of course, then you don't get transitions between all the separate elements. You just get the final slide, which is, you know, not what we're trying to do really. So, if anyone wants to write any software, effectively, it's get rid of all the windows and icons, put some variable size text on the screen with some pictures, and then make it appear and disappear. Which in real terms doesn't sound that difficult, does it? leaving no programmer, however, Steve will probably tell me completely different.
It's probably worth saying that the new versions of Artworks, the multi-page ones, can make creating slides a lot easier.
Yes.
Because you can create templates or page backgrounds that span all the pages in the
Yes.
Artworks document.
Yeah.
Which you can do with your borders and your headings and the rest of it.
Yes.
And you can lay out text areas to fill them in.
Yeah.
And then grab each page as a raw file and dump it into
Yeah. But will it do a build like a Bing suggested, or is it like a finished slide?
Well, it's easier to do the build because you
Right.
can very easily create 4 slides with 4 bullet points
Yes,
appearing
yeah.
one to the other.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Because you've got the template obviously in the multi-pages that can all stack
Yes.
up to each other.
Yeah.
It's still not ideal, but it's,
No,
it's easier than...
I knew it existed, but I didn't have the time to research into that because I've sort of tickled out when it turns into a lot of issues for certain things. You know.
And that's how I've done all my recent stuff. I've used Fade, or I've used with Fade all and done now. It's
Yeah.
a lot easier to create.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting that, well, obviously, so there's free software on the PC, so it worked out format backwards, so how difficult that would be to convert into a RISC-OS type of thing. Because you obviously sort of reverse engineer that, so that's PowerPoint, it has these elements, it appears in this way. Somebody could probably write something that does that using their sort of terminology. You've got a PowerPoint clone without it actually being PowerPoint, haven't you? And then you could possibly add other features that PowerPoint doesn't have. Unfortunately, I'm not a programmer, otherwise I'd be writing them now, I continue, because I much prefer to work with RISC-OS. But so I've got used to the bizarre ways that PowerPoint works. I mean, one year they changed, was it, I don't know if it was from PowerPoint 3 to PowerPoint 4. And like how things come onto the screen, like sort of bouncing up and going across. They had a particular word for it, and they changed the word. There was no reference to the previous word in the manual at all. So I got to about page 700 and you eventually found it. And you wouldn't be like people sort of going, help? Why just change the terminology? Or, you know, oh, this is now called that. That's all they needed to write. But anyway, that's big business for you. There's probably a helpline at 50p a second or something on that one. Cynical Jane, how could I ever think such things? Right, so what have we got to now? Now, we'll not show this in the way that it could. The thing about PowerPoint notes, you can't actually see them. I've just quickly managed to grab this, and of course, it's slightly out of focus. Same thing, probably Rick was having. Trying to take a picture of the screen with a digital camera with a flash. I have to turn the flash off, otherwise I get a picture of the flash. So this isn't in perfect light. It can see, that's sort of like the screen that you would see on the projector. And what I've got are all these tools here and some notes at the bottom. So that's really, and you can have looked at it properly on the screen here, obviously, but it's just giving you an idea of what, as a presenter, you can be seeing something additional to what's being projected. And that will be the notes to maybe say, click now, or do this link, or check with the audience about something else. So that one isn't a presentation because I did it while I was having a tea. Right. So we've shown you how OHP does everything backwards. So I mean, if you have a look at, let's see, do we have? Oh no. So we go to that one. We might have a look at something different in presentations. Whenever I go away on holiday, I think, I'm sure that could be better. And you'll like this one. Richmond Towers. I was on a holiday in Scotland a few years ago, and they had all these about 9 television channels with Sky Sports and CBBS and what have you. But it's quite a small hotel, so the staff weren't always at reception. So I thought, I wonder if you could do something with Raspberry Pi wasn't there at the time, you know, an A9 home or something, just running a rolling demo of stuff, which you could change as things change. So I thought something like this, and they were saying about clocks. I can see on certain things, well, 17 minutes 20, I've been guessing away since I last pressed something on my iPad. That you'd like a clock in the corner to tell you what it was. Up at the top here, you can see we've got seconds remaining. Obviously, it's not going to top, I can't do that, but that's something you might want to write in to tell you how long we've got on that screen, waiting for the next screen. So if we click onto the next page, he said convincingly, and I did this before and it works backwards, Let's go to TV channels. There we are. So you might have something like that, because they have the screen just like that. You know, it said welcome to wherever it was. You know, I don't think they had the time on it, but it had like the channels there, and they had channel zeros, hotel information. And I thought, yeah, why couldn't we do something like that? I could sell little systems to them. An A9 home at the time, I think, takes 5 watts as opposed to a PC taking 35 on a good day to do exactly the same. You know, so you could offer a service to it. So these were just screens I thought of that I'd like to know. When's reception open? How do you find them? When's breakfast, lunch, dinner? Rather than trying to find a piece of paper somewhere. And make up some names of places. Spartan, Golford, Baymouth, and Argia. So that's a different presentation software idea, isn't it? You just have rolling information. Effectively, once looked at train timetables as towards the more boring ones of those, and airport arrivals and departures, aren't they? Same thing, really. Except it's a live one, obviously, in those cases. But you could have, you know, some standard information, you know, where to book in and taxis and all that sort of stuff as part of that. So that's one I thought of while I was on with it. Never made any money, never went to Dragon's Den with it, and that's not it. So, let's do these. Now, this thing about backgrounds, I'm going to try something and see whether it works. But I'll probably complain, because it did last time, about missing some files. Don't worry about that. Hey, it doesn't. That means it will do shortly, I'm sure. Right. Now, that's interesting. You can just about see it on the projector. This is what's said about choosing your backgrounds carefully. I don't know if you can see, that's a typewriter keyboard. If you want to come round here and look on the monitor, it looks reasonably bright on this monitor. But of course, what happens with projectors is said that the dark and light ends of the spectrum tend to disappear. So that's something that we had running on the stand a few years ago. Just looking at different backgrounds. So, what we'll do, we'll try some other backgrounds. Just bounce out of this. And escape. So I don't know if you can see, no, you can't even see it on there, can you? I can see keyboards as a background to all these rather than dark grey. So we'll have a look at some other ones, because I had some with me, just for fun. Which ones was it? Backgrounds, strangely. So I was saying about, you can't tell that's black to blue, but it's looking more faded on that screen than it is on this one. Let's have a look at... That's a similar one, but
I think that was it, yeah.
Different. Now, that's interesting. If you're talking about nature and things, you have frosted leaves. The only catch comes in, of course, when you try and write something on top of it. That's where they all start to fall to pieces. So I've got one here. Here's one I did earlier, as they say. That's a sensible size. So you can see those light against a mid background, but if you wanted to make those stand out more, what you do, you probably do a drop shadow. Choose that one. Choose that for that. And we can pick up that one. Condensing, which of course I'm not doing. Very good at doing this in not picking anything on it. Right, so you can see that's something like a drop shadow. This is my favourite thing I learned ages ago. Press on that, you can then use the cursor keys to drop it down and across. I said condensing. Not that one. There you are. So that's starting to stand out a bit better, isn't it? As opposed to the one below it. Something drop shadow would be something for some backgrounds, if you're going to use a picture as a background, to just help it stand out a little bit better. And then what you do, you could combine those together and make that one element, and make that come in OHP. So I don't know if any of you actually used OHP. Has anyone used OHP at all? Yes? No? Very nice fun. I'll see if we can I think I'm the creation software. Let's see if we can do a quick one. Let's show how we want HP the real one. Somewhere around here. I don't know how they did it. Probably. Let's have a look at what we see. No. Oh, there we go. So, is that sure or not sure? Oh, that's it. Well, you start off by doing a draw file, don't you? That's why there's nothing much going on. Stupid one. So, we drop that in. It's not a good one to choose. Let's choose our backgrounds and bin that one. So, have our frosted leaves background. See, we have a show of nothing, because what we need to do is actually make it in draw. So let's get this right way around here, get my brain into gear. So to do that, and then that's JPEGs again, isn't it? You put the JPEG into draw. Hey, I will get my brain into gear eventually, honestly. So. So I know this is a 4:3 aspect thing. I can now put some text on top of this. And due to my fantastic typing skills, it's the quickest one I know of doing it. And then pick up that element, style it. Strangely, Huffington Bold is a favourite. And text colour of, let's go for yellow, and font size, let's see what 20 ends up like. I didn't choose yellow. Okay. So let's do that again. And the other thing you have to remember as well, this is always good fun. Font size, let's go a bit bigger than that. Let's try. I'll just choose that. My favourite title ever. But the other thing you normally always have to do with these nowadays is choose a background. So assume that's approximating to a light grey, and then that should make nice frontier-list edges on that. And then what we do to make it stand out, so we go and duplicate that, go to the back one or two, change the text colour to something darkish, maybe not quite black, then pick the front one, and drag it somewhere near, and then say with the mouse on it, down with it, and right a bit. And if we go too far, of course, I can just stop it. Or I'll just go far enough, can I? Let's go this way. Yeah. I'm confusing myself here. I've always got moving hand as I'm moving the mouse. Yeah, you can see the effect there, can't you? And then what you do is combine all those together and then make another line. But you'd have to build it all, let's say, backwards. So you have to work out what you wanted at the end. All the bullet points in the right places are lined up. Whereas on the other one that we're using, you just type the words in, don't care a ready line because you've got all the edge markers and all that sort of thing. So it is quite faff to do in OHP. I don't like to think how long it takes me to do the show presentation, but it's not minutes, let's put it that way. So that's the disappointing thing of using OHP to do it this way around. So just bin that one for a moment. Just Right, now, what we're going to have a look at. I was saying about good and bad design. I'll go back to the iPad. No, I know. It's so what to go to. What's it? Yeah, there we go. Get out of notepad. Close that. Erase it. I've got to close the end here. Right. This is a real slide, which was made admittedly years ago, where I used to work at police training. So have a look at this and see what you think. Hopefully rubbish, because I said that. All right, very good, yeah. What's going to do next? Yeah, comes in some strange way. And another different one. And some ones with micrographic. And I said, I'm sure we could make something slightly more professional than that. Because it's done in PowerPoint, and the same program, it's not as though, he had the cheap one and I had the posh one. So, right, well, how's about that? That's graded backgrounds, better fonts, just looks a bit more professional. That's a nice wipe to go to the next screen. There we are. They're exactly the same points as around before, but they're all coming in a consistent way. And they're dimming back so you can still see them, but you're highlighting what's going on. And different piece of clip art. Looks better, we're not having a white background on it. Again, things are coming in the way you're used to them coming in. And there we go. And I think, as I say, that took me, well, I just did 3 slides to sort of prove the points. And I think I did them during the afternoon from the words that I just chose some different clip art, made a graded background. Looks a whole lot different, doesn't it? We'll go back and just check. Let's just get out of this. Which one is it? Here it is. Yeah, so you can see that was the first one, that's the second, that's the third, and that was the first one in mine, second and third. So it doesn't take a lot to make something that looks better. Terry's saying I have 4-minute warning. I wonder if that's a nuclear thing. I think it's the end of this tape. So where are we got to? Not to boing 1 hour, he says. In fact, one of these clocks on here will probably tell me. 21:06 it says. So I was saying about, I went on the holiday and I was looking at that thing for the hotels. Interesting, we had went on a cruise recently, I was saying about the Russian, went around the Baltic. And I was always thinking to myself, because I've not been on a cruise before, said, well, which side is land? How far away from something? All this sort of thing. There was a map they updated every day at reception. But I thought, well, they've got a camera showing, the bow of the ship and what's going on or not. But wouldn't it be nice if they had something that said on the side of it, to the port side, with an arrow pointing the right way for us non-sailors, Just that way. Sailors and monsters will tell me. And then sort of say, in half an hour we should be sighting land, which will be the tip of such and such a country and things like that. And I thought, for me, that would make the journey more interesting. Rather than saying, going up to Camp City Country and saying, what's that over that side, boss? So I think information system, and that one obviously with one which will, the graphics or the text as it would be, will go over the top of a live camera, which I don't know if any of you have used that sort of thing, is what we call a Genlock system. So interestingly, BBCs and Acorns for years gave out a standard video signal, or could be made to give out a standard video signal, so they could superimpose their graphics over the top of a video signal, which is how what's the title in the BBC was done. And Archimedes computers with Genlocks in the background. Yeah. Did you know that? Terry says 2 minutes. And I think I've done quite well, or not, depending on how you look at this.
Can I just tell you a funny thing about?
Yes.
We were on ship, and there was an American. He says, "This is cabin 214. This is cabin 216." where the hell is 215? Especially with all evens down one side of the ship.
Yeah, not lost.
down the other
That's
side.
right, yeah. Well, the problem we found was the ship was symmetrical, so if you come out from either of the ends of it to the middle, you didn't know which end you were. We've been there for 2 hours, and we were looking at where our quarters were. Cabin, not quarters. Quarters indeed. The boys stood on the burning deck, I think. Looking, we left a table, and only on that corner, so we knew if we're at the right end or not. So we knew we had to go right to the end or come back again. But as I say, every time we go on holiday, I think there's something to do with presentation software or something that you could change on holiday that would make it more interesting for me. So yeah, I think that's about it. So if anyone knows how to write some PowerPoint type software that can build up bullet points and stuff like that, I'd be greatly appreciated and would pay you money. There's a threat. But I think other people in Bristol might do as well, because they don't really want to use PowerPoint, I'm sure. And I'll use a native Bristol's program. If anyone has an even very bad idea of programming it, it might be better than, as shown on OHP, starting off with something that's finished and deconstructing it in stages. So it might get in your car and saying, right, and now I've got down to a washer. It's a long way to go. So. Right, I think that's about it. So if anyone wants to have a look at the software we've got here on the iPads and bits and pieces that have been used on the software, please feel free.
Right, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Rock, helping you with Acorn and Riscos computing.